switch to her other computer when she gets to the office.
All right. Good morning, Chair Postman, board members Garrett and Hauge. The lobby is open and the recording has begun.
Great. Thanks, Dustin. I still have a notification on my, oh, no, I don't. Good morning. I will convene the board caucus meeting for Tuesday, November 30th, 2021. We have a short agenda today, but thought we could talk about some of these councils. So one, just FYI, tomorrow we will meet with the Alcohol Advisory Council at 1:30 to 3:30. And hopefully everyone will be able to be there. We got several staff presentations. I know that licensing will, Becky's going to spend some time talking about the work that's being done on the ongoing allowances out of, I think, what was that, House Bill 1480. And talk about that a little bit, SMP update, and from Jim and a few other topics, hopefully hear from council members. I had asked them when we called the meeting just to think about what do they see for the future of the council. I know it hasn't always met regularly. I've met with them just the one time right after I started. So I'm hoping people come with some, either ideas or at least opinions on how useful it's been and what they'd like to see in the future. So hopefully you both will be able to be there and can help stir that conversation a little. I just want these to be useful for us, but for the members of this council who are taking some time, and I don't know. And, we've had little discussions about the others. I think the other big question is around the Cannabis Council. I think the tribal one, Russ, there's a lot of other avenues of conversation that go on. So it's not as if that council doesn't work and tribes are not a monolith and all that. But I guess I'd be curious if you think there's value in trying again to reconstitute or kickstart or something.
I can't remember Brett's last name. He left the agency, I think, just before you came on board, David, but he and I worked together. He was in the director's office and he was staff primarily responsible for tribal relations, worked it really hard. When we went out to new tribes who were interested in compacting, he went with me, very familiar with the process, developed a lot of good relations. And he and I worked on this issue quite a lot. And what we came up with is, in summary, that first off, the name of the agent or the group, Tribal Advisory Council, was a misnomer. I mean,
yeah,
who's advising who? We're separate sovereigns. It just created a little awkwardness at the outset. He and I put together an idea or a plan. I think you've maybe seen the memo to recast the group in more of a collaborative sense, with both the tribes and us having equal authority, or authority is probably a poor term, but having the right to call meetings and set agendas. In other words, it's not us telling the tribes what we want them to know, it's how do we share. And we ran that by members of several tribes, spent a lot of time with the Puyallup tribes. They, at that time, their chair was in a position of authority in the one of the larger tribal groups. I'm working from memory, so I'm sorry. And received a lot of support for the general idea of recasting the group in that form. And unfortunately, well, for not unfortunately, I mean, it just happened. With COVID and everything else, we lost a little momentum there. But I guess in summary, I think that the notion of a tribal advisory council is not really that useful in the current situation.
Yeah.
And that what we really need is outreach to the tribes, and we need to impress upon them our willingness to listen to their concerns and try to reach an accommodation. I think there's a lot of room, particularly in the cannabis space, for innovation, particularly with the tribes, given that they are separate sovereigns. And there are things that perhaps we could try with the tribes that we can't try with non-tribal license holders.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big opportunity that we really have to pursue because, well, again, it's a place where we're going to learn things.
Yeah.
And so I would not advocate trying to restart or kickstart or redo the Tribal Advisory Council. We need to continue the dialogue that we started before COVID hit. Chris has been very good working with the tribes, but he's got a lot on his plate, an enormous amount, particularly now with legislative session. So there's a lot of work to do. I think it's a fertile field, and the opportunities for partnership are exciting. We have to work harder, though, to create a vehicle for us to share with the tribes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree. It's not probably doesn't sound like it's worth reconstituting that entity itself, but I guess the question then is how do we have those conversations to create those opportunities? Every tribe, of course, has the right to have a government to government consultation with us. That's almost more when things get at loggerheads and not as much in a creative brainstorming way. So I think that's the question is how do we set that environment so we have that kind of conversation?
And that's really it. I mean, the times that I've been again before COVID, I was much more involved in a hands-on way with tribal affairs, and where we really, I think, got into some exciting possibilities was in one-on-ones, where, for example, the Squaxin tribe. They've been really committed to their efforts to grow and to process and to sell. And again, there are opportunities, I think, when we're looking at a small enclosed system like that, where we could perhaps, because it's not our job, we don't really have a lot of control, we could collaborate in maybe pushing the envelope a little bit here and there if we have a willing partner with the tribal government. We've got ground to break on things like social consumption.
Right.
We've got ground to break on things like, how are we going to control? Well, primarily the social aspect is what I'm
Sure.
thinking of.
Direct sales from growers, perhaps.
Exactly. There are lots of innovations that we could try on for size if a tribe was willing to collaborate with us, and we could I think there's just lots of possibilities. Lots of possibilities.
Yeah, good. We should do that more. Um, and I've heard a little from tribes with some ideas like that, but you're totally right. We have to work to figure out how to just stimulate that conversation more,
Yes.
and maybe just having this conversation and letting people know that there is that possibility of innovation, and as you say, pushing the envelope a little bit. If now a tribe can do what they want on their own within their own uh, 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 lands, but if they wanted to work with us on figuring out what our best practices and things like that, I think that could be a rich ground, and we have a little of that going on. So yeah. Okay. Ollie, what about the Cannabis Advisory Council? We've talked about it, and I know, a lot of those folks are engaged in the equity conversation, and I've only met with them the one time, and I don't know. Do you hear from people on that council? Do they want to be meeting? Should we do something? Is there a way to reshape that so it is more kind of general industry concern? Oh, you're muted.
I was going to say my goal is to reshape it.
Yeah.
A lot of the folks that was part of the committee, they are no longer there, and they're new folks. I wanted us to get past, because the social equity conversation in the task force, it's been a lot of meetings, and
Yeah.
they're all 3 to 4 hour meetings. So I didn't want to have a meeting with those meetings, because a lot of the same folks are on those meetings. The last 2 meetings for the year got canceled. We don't have, I don't think yet, know for sure what the recommendations that's going to come back to the LCB is going to be. But my goal was to start those meetings up next year, and to revamp the committee, but also then have discussions around the recommendations and different things that was given to us, what we can do, what we cannot do, and those type of conversations to keep the community abreast on, progress and things that we're doing. But I don't see anything happening probably until maybe late first quarter.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I do want to reshape it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from what would be helpful for me, what I would like to have that opportunity when we do start those up, whenever it is, just to hear from people that are actually doing the business out there that we're regulating. You know what I mean? The store operator, the processor, the grower, um, and that's always really helpful to me. And I think you just it's different than when people appear before the board at a board meeting, or when you sit and meet with the association. It's just a different vibe. We do those too, of course, but there's something about being able to develop those relationships with the people who are, where the rubber meets the road,
Right.
and hearing from them directly.
Well, I think and the difference between the cannabis and the alcohol is the advisory groups was based on organizations that represent the groups. And in
Yeah.
the cannabis industry, you don't have all of the uh, put together organizations that you have in alcohol.
Yeah.
So that's what Dustin and I have been brainstorming on. How do we, I want to reshape it, and what would that look like?
Yeah.
That
Good.
when you have an industry that probably only have 3 solid organizations.
Right. Right. And probably a lot of people out there who are in the business who aren't active in any of those organizations.
Correct.
And where do
Yeah.
we, and to the same thing Russ was just talking about with the tribes, how do we set that up where people have that opportunity to share kind of innovative ideas and things of that sort? We need to get to that level of a conversation with licensees, I think, where they feel like they can come to us more directly like that.
Right.
And it's just conversation. These
Right.
advisory councils are not groups that make decisions, but we should be able
Just
to have a conversation.
And one of the things that I was thinking about that it might be that, which is how we do the social equity task force, is have a segment on the agenda that's open since things are virtual, where it is open for comments during the cannabis advisory meeting council to the community, because we didn't want to get into picking individuals to be on the committee, and then the question become, how did that person get picked, how did that person get picked? And that was the reason we were sticking with the organizations. But I got to sort it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's a more mature industry now. There are organizations that are out there doing these things, and you're right, it's largely 3 that we hear from, but it'd be worth stirring that up a little and seeing what we could find. And can I ask you about the equity recommendations, since you brought that up? Should we be concerned that they canceled those last 2 meetings for the year? Does that mean you're all having a hard time settling, or just what?
Well, I mean, we just got the email that they were being canceled. I know I'm on the licensing group, and I know that we hadn't really voted on things out of our group, and that meeting was canceled. But in the email, they did say that they were continuing to meet with the chairs of the committee. So, and in the last meeting that we had, when they were coming up with the scoring and everything, we were kind of taken aback on what the recommendations were, because, and we're having a meeting, and I think it's this week, with our AGs, because just to see some of the things that's being voted on, are we going to be able to do anything with those recommendations? And one of the things that I kept putting emphasis on, and I still put emphasis on, is there are some things the LCB can do, but there are things that we can't do. And I don't want it to seem like we are given recommendations and the LCB is saying no and not accepting the recommendations, and it look like we are against things when you're putting together recommendations that we are not able to do as an agency without going out to the legislators or whatever those things are.
Or even that we might have where we don't have the legal authority,
right?
And even the legislature would have some question about whether they could do these things.
Exactly.
I'm glad to hear you say that. That's been a question I've had too all along here, is how do we make, we want to do this work,
right?
And we've been doing what we can, on the criminal backgrounds and other pieces, and you've really helped lead us through all of that, and we're going to keep doing all that.
Right.
But if we have things in the recommendations that the AAG's office is telling us we can't do, or how do you communicate that in a way that people understand?
And we were kind of like hoping that, because as you know, the LCB, we've created our own internal task force, and we're excited and waiting and ready to be able to get license out to folks under the social equity program. So we were excited and hoping to get great recommendations to where we were able to do it and able to start the process. So we were looking forward to being able to, because we have license that we're holding that was geared toward the social equity program. So we were hoping to get recommendations and to actually be one of the first to put a program together that showed license were actually going out. As you know, with the other states, this is a job, everybody's trying to figure it out. Yeah. But they're all coming up with programs that's getting tied up in court, legal. And we were hoping that we had a program that we could show that we were actually issuing license under the social equity program, not being tied up in court because of what we put together, like all of the other states. That was our hope. And so we will see what our AAG says. We will try to do everything, we can legally with the recommendations that have been given to us and not just automatically look at them and say, no, we can't do this. We will look at every avenue before we, go back to what we can do and cannot do. And I'm sure a lot of it will be coming to the board and things. We will have the discussions. But I was hoping that we were going to be able to start issuing license under the social equity program sooner than later. So I don't know what that's going to look like now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead, Russ.
Hey, Ollie, in the course of the social equity discussions, has there been any fleshing out of the need or the capacity of larger urban jurisdictions like Seattle to absorb more licenses if we wanted to create them? Has there been that kind of analysis?
Yeah, and Seattle would like more license, and the Association of Washington Cities, they're a part of that, and they've done a survey to others to see who wants more, and on and on. All of those things have been going on at the same time, and they are part of the group. The issue is just because they want more doesn't mean that based on are their locations.
Right.
Are there, are you going to run into permitting issues? Are you going to run it? So we don't want to open up something to where now people still they got a license, but they can't open up and things like that. So it's a lot to sort through. Part of the recommendations, they talked about lifting some of the requirements we have. But even in doing that, does it open up more space?
When you talk about those requirements, and this is one of the things I was just going to, like the buffer from a store
Right.
to a school.
Right.
Is where is that in the conversation? Is that in a recommendation yet, or has that just been discussed?
It's been discussed, and I think it was in one of the recommendations to lift some of those, not the ones for the schools, but there were other things that was in there. Yeah. And then I think in part of the conversation, the certain cities have already, done that anyway. They have the authority to do that.
When this was right when I started in March, maybe even that soon, licensing came to us and had done a pretty comprehensive survey about moratorias and things of that sort around the state, and had asked local officials what their view and position was. And one of the things, and I was trying to find it, but it's in the archive and can't find things that quickly, but what I recall was a conversation with some like city councils, of course, have turned over since these bans and zoning things were put in place. So today, with cannabis more accepted in these communities, there could be an openness to doing more, and that we're finding kind of a need to really update. And so I think that's one of the hopes I have here, is just that whatever those recommendations are, that a lot of these cities that have tight restrictions or bans are willing, not our place to say they should do it, but just let's look at it again.
Right.
If there's an equity thing that could be served.
And they are reaching out to all of them.
Yeah.
There's communication going on with all of them and things. So, and during the whole process, licensing have been part of the conversations and on the calls, and every chance that we're having a conversation around something that I know that we can help folks understand, well, the LCB has already done this. We already know the answer to this things. I was able to have it to where Becky could come on to any of those conversations and educate folks on the task force of what they were discussing. Where in the beginning, it was a lot of discussion going on, and I wasn't able to answer. But then I would have to go back internal and say, is this true? Is that true? Or can we do this? Or can we do that? And it was, I felt like we were losing something, not having those answers in real time. Mm-hmm. So I was able to get it to where someone from license can always be on as a panelist to be available to where when questions come out that they know that the discussion is wrong, or somebody would say something like the LCB's it's got 500 dormant license. She was
Right.
able to correct those things real time.
Yeah.
And that really made a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the Chair Morgan's done a good job, opening that conversation up as much as possible. And I've talked to her a couple of times about this. It's not my, zone. I don't go to those meetings, obviously, or anything of that sort. But I've appreciated what I've heard. But I share your concerns, those recommendations, which is let's just be clear about what delivering the recommendations isn't going to be the end of that process.
Right.
We
Right.
then have to work the system, whether that's the legislature, there could be legal challenges. We need to make sure that we're in a safe place to do those things and push it. But we are committed to doing the work. I think that
Right.
from what I hear in the agency, and I'm glad you pointed out the work of licensing and Becky, people just aren't willing. They're eager to do this.
Well, that's the reason I get frustrated with some of the conversation, because I know we're eager to do this and to do it right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I've not heard anybody in my months here to say anything other than, let's do it. Let's do it right, but let's get going. I think
Right.
there
Let's
is
get going. Yeah.
from the director on down. So,
Yes.
well, I'm again just glad you're there and bringing along agency staff too, and so it's starting to get more integrated into our agency too, which I think is important. We'll
Yeah.
see. So, okay. All right. Well, that was helpful. Anything from either of you want to raise or discuss today? Yeah, Russ.
I have here in my hands. Oh, you can't see it because of the damn background. Anyway,
I trust
I
you
have
had something
my
in your hand.
copy of the newly issued first in the country cannabis law desk book, published by the Attorney General Alliance through Thomson Reuters. Bruce Turcotte, one of the managing editors.
Yay.
And I have his assurance that he will sign my copy. And I want to put him on notice officially that I'm going to be asking for that. And that our own Kathy Hoffman also was responsible for several chapters, and I'm going to get her signature as well. As a former practicing small town lawyer, I got to tell you, this kind of thing is huge. This is going to be on everybody's desk. It should be. And I just can't give Bruce and the rest of the AGs here enough props for taking the time to put this together while we're creating this market.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think we all ordered one. I haven't seen mine yet, so I'm glad they're out there. But I look forward to that. It seems like an incredibly impressive piece of work at any time, but like you said, to do this while we're building the plane, so to speak. And Kathy, of course, did her chapters in addition to her job and getting a PhD. So it's quite an impressive group of people on there. But yeah, look forward to that. And it'll be available. I think there's going to be an online version of it too. And I bet it just gets a lot of access from people around the country who are trying to learn what we've learned, and the other states that are involved in this too. But yeah, Bruce obviously played a leading role in this. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I hope there won't be a test on the book though, because I'm not pretending
what this shows, and as you can see, it's going to be updated regularly. I mean, that's what this gives the daily practitioner, the guy who's sitting in his office and somebody comes in and says, I got a problem in the cannabis space. This is the best attempt to slow down that moving target. Keep a handy desk reference right there so you know what you're talking about when somebody has trouble in the system. And it's really an accomplishment.
Yeah, that's great. Good. I'm glad you brought that up. Excellent. All right. Anything else? Yeah, Ollie.
Next Tuesday, I won't be on board caucus. I have a community meeting with the governor from 9:30 to 10:30 next Tuesday.
All right. Well, I guess he takes precedence. Okay.
I try to tell them, I was like, it's my LCB day, Governor.
He doesn't care. No, that's good. I'm glad you're engaged on that side too. We do need to figure out around the next holiday week. So I know Dustin's going to reach out about to staff too about agendas for caucus and board meetings the week leading into Christmas, and see if what's necessary there and what isn't. It makes it easier, I think, for all concerned staff and the public and everybody else if they don't have to necessarily come to a meeting. What would it be? December 22nd or something. So that's a quiet week generally. So we'll see. But either if you have travel plans or time off or anything, let Dustin know so we can figure this out. But we'll do that.
Yeah, and right now I am leaning toward between Christmas and New Year's taking that week off.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll do my days off that week too, and we can just unplug or something. But and make sure staff can do what they need to too. I think Dustin might be looking at the week before, but yeah, okay, we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
good. Okay. Well, that's the end of the agenda. Dustin, I'll just pause for a second, see if there's any executive assistant report.
Nothing additional for me. Thank you for bringing up the potential holiday time off considerations. So Member Garrett and Member Hauge, I'll reach out to you later today or tomorrow and kind of go over some of those plans and how the holidays fall on not regularly scheduled days and how we can kind of shift and trade those around. So between the three of us and Cindy, we'll get that taken care of here in the next few days.
Yeah, great. Good. Okay. Well, thank you then. A good conversation. Appreciate everybody's time and the public who were able to attend. And we will adjourn the board caucus for Tuesday, November 30th, 2021.
Thank you all.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.